So today we're talking about tending your garden of health. So what we're really talking about is your body and how to tend it and take care of yourself. So when we look at this, we need to look at it from many different vantage points. So you have many different systems in the body, but there's one master system that ultimately controls all the other systems. So one of the systems that is severely affected by stress is the hormones. So that's going to be like cholesterol, which is actually a precursor for every hormone. So cholesterol is used to make every steroid hormone, which is estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all those different hormones. And when people don't have those in the proper balance, what happens is they'll get PMS, impotency, infertility, they'll groggy brain, mood swings, all these things will happen. So why am I talking about this? Is because cholesterol is released when you're stressed. So every time you have a stress response, you push cholesterol out. Now why would the body do this? It does it because cholesterol is basically an ambulance cell. Its job is to heal an area that has been damaged. Every single cell membrane, so when I talk about that, what we're talking about is the outside of a cell, is actually made out of cholesterol. It's called a phospholipid. Lipid means fat, cholesterol is a fat. So it's a membrane. And that membrane, if it's damaged, the cholesterol will latch onto it. And that's why it's sticky. It'll latch onto it and heal it. And it will stop it from having problems. But if we're continually stressed out through our chemical stress, emotional stress, and physical stress, then we'll push this cholesterol out into the bloodstream over and over and over again. So we've been misled or incorrectly taught that what we eat determines our cholesterol content. Now I'll agree with that on one fact. If we eat substances that cause inflammation, like bread, then it will increase our cholesterol content. The funny thing about cholesterol is if you eat high fatty diets, your cholesterol goes down. If you eat the bread with the steak, your cholesterol goes up because the cholesterol is going up to try to heal you from the inflammation that you just produced. So you don't eat the bread and you eat the steak, you're fine. Does that make sense? So the inflammation is coming from the bread, the grains, the GMO foods. That can increase cholesterol. The majority of people don't have that issue. So what they have is an emotional stress. That's 90% of the stress that we deal with nowadays. An emotional stressor, and that's what's pushing the cholesterol out. Now, if we're continually doing this every 20 to 30 minutes because our boss is a pain, or we drive, or different things like that happen, or we think about old traumatic events, then what will happen is, and I'm going to go back before we even get there, so your brain actually doesn't know the difference between what you see and what you think about. There's no difference in the brain. So if you visualize an event that was traumatic in the past, you'll have the same physiological responses if you were in that event. So if we remember traumatic events over and over and over again and replay them, that's how we get depression and anxiety, depending on which brain we have, and we go into that chronic stress response. So what we need to understand is that if we're stuck in that stress, that's what's going to drive us to the sickness. Now, the cholesterol is pushed out because of those repeated stress responses. So what do? It goes out and it's trying to find something to heal, but there's nothing to heal because we're not actually fighting a tiger, or lion, or bear, or anything like that. So it can get stuck on the walls, and that's what atherosclerosis comes from. I've even had people, that's the hardening of the arteries that people talk about. I've even had people that are vegans and meditate every single day and have cholesterol counts into the 200s and 300s. Why is this happening? They're CEOs, CFOs of companies, and they're stressed to the max because they got to make sure the company is working. So what we need to understand is, and the reason why I'm going into cholesterol really in depth is because we need to understand that this is all the byproduct of how our brain is seeing the world. If you want to tend every single part of your body and see how healthy every single part of your body is, it's a direct reflection of your brain's ability to see or not see, perceive, not perceive, if you're in a stress response or not in a stress response. And the brain waves through which you perceive the world, which is a lens, determines how healthy or sick you'll actually be. So if we want to look at it, there's multiple systems in the body. The basic system that holds us up is the passive system. And that system is consisted of bones and ligaments. That system cannot do anything by itself. It's like a rock on the ground. It doesn't move. But when we have an active system, that's the muscles. And that system moves us, takes us through gravity, holds us up, takes care of us. That system, though, cannot control itself. There's a master system, a system that runs everything, that lifeline. That's the brain and the spinal cord, the nerve system. That system determines how the joints move. That system determines how the muscles move. So if you have a joint problem, it means your brain is not firing the muscles correctly. If you have an organ problem, it means your brain isn't firing that organ correctly. If you have a glandular problem, it means your brain is literally stuck in stress, and as a byproduct, you're burning that system out. All these different issues we see, we're taught to look into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller holes and pigeonhole it. Well, I need to go to a kidney guy, I need to go to a heart guy, a limb guy, an ear, nose, and throat guy. It's not that way. What it is there's one cause of all disease that we have, and that's our body being stuck in a stress response. Chronic stress response is the cause of all disease that we see. I'll even give us, it's the cause of 99.999%. Because there's always somebody stupid who's going to walk out in front and get hit by a truck or something. So that's not caused by that, but it could be caused by your malperception. So you can't see things correctly, you don't perceive things correctly. You know, you're driving along, I didn't see the car. So what we need to understand is that we're continually being remade. So if we're being remade, we need to tend our garden correctly. How are we going to do that? We have to be able to perceive what's going on. The liver, the lungs, the kidney, the heart. We have to see if all those are working correctly. The muscles. And the major one that we're seeing a lot of people deal with nowadays is cognitive issues. The ADDs, the ADHDs, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, the MS, the ALS. All these things are boosting at the seams. And the reason why it's so prevalent nowadays is we have more stressors than we've ever had in our life. Everybody loves cell phones, right? They did research in Canada in the 90s that showed that cell phones cause cancer. Because the wave will actually interfere with the way your tissue works, the radio waves. And so we're exposed to what's called electromagnetic smog or stress. Lights put it off, TVs, anything magnetic puts it off. This is something that as a human or our species has never encountered before. So this is all new. It's so traumatic that some people are so sensitive that they have to move to far places where there's no smog because they get sick from it. They literally get really sick. They'll vomit, they won't be able to leave, they'll be depressed, all these things because of the smog that's happening. So what happens is we want to make you adaptable because we're living in this environment. I don't want you to be all depressed, oh, I gotta move to some little area in the middle of nowhere. That's not gonna happen. What we need to do is become adaptable and learn how to heal ourselves. Now, what was working really good until like the 80s? Meditation. Because that's when all the ramping up of stress and everything changed. And if an easy way for you to understand is, if you watched the news before 1990 and 1980, they told you the news. If you watch the news now, they tell you why to be scared. Those are two different things. And so this is real simple because the news drives the stress response. And what happens is when you turn the stress response on, you actually boost adrenaline and cortisol. And you'll actually get a dopamine rush as well. So you'll become addicted to that feeling. And that's why if you watch the news, it's really hard to go to bed at night because you're scared of all the things, but you're physiologically stuck in stress. So one of the things that I did that was the biggest transformation in my life besides becoming a chiropractor and getting adjusted was going on media fast. So you literally stop and become aware of what you're listening to and seeing. And you'll become hypersensitive, and you'll start seeing things. You go, that's crazy, that's crazy, that's crazy. And you'll become aware of how crazy the things are that we think is common everyday things. When you stop and listen to those commercials, you know, well, you have a hurt toe, side effects may be death. Like, literally, the stuff we hear is crazy. So what I'm trying to make you guys understand is that what determines how healthy or sick your body is your brain. Your brain is the driver of everything. However healthy or however sick you are is how adaptable your brain is. And so what happens is when your body gets stuck in that high beta stress state, that's when you break down. Now when I talk about the brain waves, are you guys aware of them, or do you want me to go over them again? Go over them again? Okay. So beta is split into 2 frequencies. Well, it's actually 4, but we'll make it 2 so it's easier. So there's high, and then there's low. Low goes from, depending on the literature you look at, from 13 to 21. Some will say 15. It just depends on the researcher. 22 to 36/40, depending on who you talk to, is high beta. This is where disease happens. If you produce this brain frequency anywhere else than the front of your brain, the very front, it's going to cause a lot of problems. The people that are the sickest have this frequency in the back of the brain. You're not supposed to produce any of it back there. So the back of your brain, its job is to calm everything down. It's literally, its job is to sort everything and to calm everything down. And as we go forward, its job is to speed things up. So your conscious awareness is only right here in the frontal cortex, based on the concepts of Newtonian physics. So what I'm saying is based on the concepts of matter. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. So what we've seen is they've actually proven that your consciousness is not actually in your brain, it's an electromagnetic field around you. And that your brain is actually the receiver, which allows the consciousness to be pushed into you. So there's research down in Arizona where they have EEGs where they don't even touch your head, and they put a field around you and they can read your EEGs by not even touching you. So your brain waves are actually being referred in, and it's being able to see what's going on. So what I'm actually doing is I'm hardwiring the receiver within your brain to be able to receive the information so you cognitively process it correctly. That's when we start really getting out there. So I thought you guys might want to learn some stuff like that. Most people don't talk about that. They think of it as cognitive. So one of the theories right now, or one of the dogmas in psychology is that your thoughts are actually in your brain. That your brain, the neurons connecting are your thoughts. That's been disproven. There's too many thoughts or too many things to have that happen. Basically, I'll give you an example. You can have what's called a hemiectomy. That means half your brain is taken away. And if your thoughts were the communications, then you should lose those thoughts, but you don't. So it just doesn't work. So what's happening is we're helping the receiver, the brain, work correctly. And when it communicates correctly, then you can communicate to your body correctly. Then it gets even crazier. The body communicates at a speed faster than the speed of sound. Now, why am I saying that? Because the speed of sound is the speed at which the neurons communicate at. It's an acoustic wave that the nerves communicate via. So it's like a wave, like like that wave. They actually communicate via light. So they communicate via photons of electricity, so or photons. So what we actually have learned is that the body is a bioluminescent being. What that means is the body emits light. So you can take a high spectrum or a high density photography unit, and you put somebody in a completely dark room and you take a picture of them, and based on how much light they emit tells you how healthy they are. So when you're communicating correctly, you're emitting a lot of light because light is given off and information is sent between the whole body through light and electromagnetic fields. So what we need to understand is that we're not a physical thing. What we've been taught is that we're two pieces and we're stuck together, or we're pieces and we're just stuck together and we're parts. It's not how it works. We're literally an electromagnetic field communicating, and as a byproduct, that field induces the cells to turn into, basically it turns the DNA to make a protein that makes the part of your body. Did it go down the hole too deep for you?
No.
So what happens is my goal is to make the brain resonate correctly to control the field so that you remake the tissue. And you remake the field and its generating pattern. And when you remake it correctly, you get better. An easy way for everybody to know, and everybody's experienced this, is when somebody is sick, how much energy they put off. What color are they? They're really down, they're really low, right? They're gray looking. When somebody's healthy, they're vibrant, they're red, you can see it, you can almost feel their energy coming in. You're actually feeling the electromagnetic field that they put off coming in. So that's why when somebody gets close to you, they're in your space, they're in your field. And when they're in your field, if the fields don't resonate, that's why you get the weird vibes. So what we want to do is have these brain waves, which allow the field to communicate correctly, work correctly. When this is going on, it's too disruptive to the field or how your body actually communicates. And then you can't actually heal it. So high beta is sick. Then we have SMR. This is only found in the middle part of the brain, and its function is to control the way your brain interprets information and processes it, as well as control muscle movement. An easy way to understand what SMR is it's half beta and half alpha, but what it is REM sleep. That's why when I put you on SMR, everybody feels really, really good. Because you process information and you cognitively put it in the places it needs to be. So SMR runs from 12 to 15. Then we have alpha. And alpha runs from 8 to 12, so this is 13. So what we can see is alpha is split into two frequencies as well, high and low. So high alpha is where you want to be. High alpha is awesome, specifically in the frontal lobe. Really, really good. High alpha is 11 and 12. Low alpha is that 8 to 10. Now here's the funny thing. In the frontal lobe specifically, high alpha, you're literally a genius. This is the brainwave. Alpha and gamma are the brainwaves of geniuses. You're very productive. The other funny thing is low alpha, and I'll give you an example how this works. People who smoke marijuana stimulate low alpha. What happens if you smoke a lot of marijuana? How does your head go? Can you remember a lot of things?
No.
No, so you lose thoughts, right? So low alpha is actually what leads to Alzheimer's and plaquing and decay and issues like that. Now, what I've learned is that this low alpha produced by marijuana specifically affects the midbrain. So the hemp plant affects the midbrain. That's why when you ingest it, it'll make seizures go away. That's why when you ingest it as a CBD, it'll make pain go away as well. So it's related to a specific part of the brain that is related to your body's ability to feel how things are working. Because the midbrain is also where the limbic system is, which is the emotional center of the brain. Then below alpha is theta. Now theta is subconscious. This is when you're groggy in the morning and you're half awake and half asleep. Theta is the brainwave that heals you when you sleep. If you don't produce theta, you will not heal. Delta will do slight healing, but delta is the one below here, So theta is 3.5 to 7.8 or 8, depending on the article. And then delta is 1 to 3, 0.5 to 3. It's a general idea. Delta, its main thing, does do a little bit of rest, but its main job is energy storage. The common problem in North America today is called a beta-delta switch. You skip this. So you hit the pillow, you fall right asleep, and you don't dream. If you don't dream, you're doing this. And you're gaining weight when you're sleeping, because you're not burning off calories, because you're not going into these higher brainwave states. This is the average North American. And the reason why it also causes issues is this brainwave theta is related to vitamin D, as in dog absorption. Vitamin D is directly linked to things like MS. It's directly linked to 3,000 genes being turned on. So if you don't have D, you get sick. If you don't have D, you don't have theta. Turn on theta, you're fine. So literally what they found is people with sleep apnea don't absorb vitamin D because they don't produce theta. So our goal is to make sure that you can go through these cycles correctly. So what does that mean? If you're going to heal, you got to produce this brainwave. But that brainwave is only produced for cycles. So if you don't cycle correctly, you'll never get there. So what tends your garden? Your brain and these frequencies, which determine how your body goes into its ability to resonate and heal different aspects. So if we go back to that electromagnetic field, each one of these drivers is the receptor that tells the body what to do. Because this drives the heart, and the heart emits more fields as well. So what we need to understand is that our subconscious, so the one we're not aware of, perception of the world determines if we're healthy or sick. So when we change that, we change everything. When we're stuck in stress, that's when we make sickness and disease. And that's a specific brainwave. If I want to see a really, really sick person, I see this beta brainwave in the back of the head, I know they're sick. I know they can't sleep. I know they can't relax. I know they're going towards mental breakdown. I know they're just falling apart. But what it is that brainwave is produced to help you deal with that stressful environment. But it's only supposed to be produced for 15 minutes. So if you want to tend your garden, you got to have the right spade or hoe or whatever you're talking about, and that's the right frequencies. So if you don't have each one of these, and you don't have the right ability, utensil, or tool, then you can't have the healthy body. And so the problem is that what the pharmaceutical industry is doing is giving us drugs that artificially put us into pieces of these states. But I'll give you an example of one of them. So one of them is an SSRI. That's called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. An easy way to understand this is Prozac. And all the drugs that are given to kids that are used for ADHD and ADD. Here's the one issue. What it does is it will stimulate 18 to 25 hertz. So what are we seeing it doing here? It stimulates this, that's good. That's why the drug makes the kid feel good and is very productive. And this is why we see students use it a lot to study and cram. Because it's very productive. The issue though is 22 to 25 is where you get the paranoia, where you get the irrational thinking, where you get the kids that now go and shoot people and do craziness because the drug is literally pushing them into that state. Now what will happen with children is that we'll see them, if they have true ADD, that drug will help them because it'll make their brain speed up. Because ADD is a brain that's stuck in too much theta. It's stuck in a sleep state. And so why they move and are very motion oriented is that's a way to stay awake. So think about when you're driving your car and you're falling asleep. You're doing all the motions, right? That's good. It'll boost it up. But the problem is when ADHD, if you boost it for too long, the brain will get stressed out, and then it will go to AD, or from ADD to ADHD. So ADD is too much of this. ADHD is too much of this. So now you have a fire that's already a bonfire, and you're throwing stuff onto it that makes it get worse. And this is why you see people who've been on these drugs for long periods of time and they're fine, and then all of a sudden they snap. They look like they're fine, but what's going on is their body's getting pushed into this high brainwave state, and that's what's leading to decay and dysfunction, and what leads to them doing irrational tasks, irrational motions. The reason why I'm telling you this is because these drugs are literally killing us. And I want people to be aware that we can change this naturally. Have you stay in these states and move up and down naturally. These drugs, if you're stuck in this brainwave state, are you going to be able to relax? Are you going to be able to sleep? What are the side effects? Yeah. Are you going to get suicidal thoughts? Yeah, because you can't sleep. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's why we're seeing these things. So I want you to think of friends and family members, because this is a pandemic. ADD, ADHD, PTSD, insomnia. Everybody has this nowadays. There's ways to heal this without drugs. And the drugs will literally send you down the cliff. Most people aren't aware of this. These drugs, they came out the same time meth came out. Want to know why that happened? It's literally pharmaceutical grade meth. If you talk to DEA agents, they'll tell you that. So we're giving our children meth and thinking it's okay. That's not okay. What we need to do is look in ourselves and understand that we have the ability to heal. We just have to be able to cycle correctly, beta, SMR, alpha, theta, delta, and go up and down, and then we heal ourselves. If you've ever had a sleeping pill, when you wake up after that, you're not in a relaxed state because your brain didn't actually heal. You didn't actually go through there. It forced you to do something, but you didn't heal, because unless you can cycle, you won't heal. So what we need to do to tend our garden, to make sure we're healthy, is make sure our brain can go through the phases and healing. And that's what we do here. And that's why you guys are seeing the changes you're seeing in such a short period of time. Days and weeks. Changes that have been going on in your lives, like insomnia and big things, like insomnia is a big one, ADD big one, ADHD, all these things. We're seeing all these things change, and muscle issues and all that, because these brain waves are literally driving how healthy or sick we are. So what heals you is your brain. We just have to train it to remember how to do what it was taught to do when it was young. Remember to work correctly. And when it works correctly, you heal yourself. Any questions? So what I implore and what I ask you to please do is that when you have knowledge, now you're held responsible to tell your friends and family members. Because now you have an answer that will stop them from going down that path that we all know leads to a lot of issues. Think of them and just have them come in and get checked. I'm not saying get them adjusted. I'm not saying any of that stuff. Have them come in and get checked. We'll do that HRV test on them and show them how healthy they really are. And then if they're at 100%, I can't do anything. That's awesome.
How many 100% people walk through that?
I've had one.
Not too many.
But if they're not, then we can show them what it takes to get better. Any questions? Excellent. Thank you guys.